Добрий день.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Ola Atamanova and Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation today. It's been 10 years of the war and today is day 444 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and I traditionally want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about this war and the heroic resistance of the Ukrainian people. Now we will be talking about the operation of our grain deal. Joining us online is Vasyl Bodnar, the ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of Ukraine to Turkey. Mr. Vasyl, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Glory to Ukraine. Happy Vyshivanka Day to all of you. Glory to the heroes. Thank you. We're hearing you. You are clear and loud. Mr. Vasyl, we were tracking the events around the extension of a grain deal recently. Turkey confirmed its extension, so if you can, please tell us about the negotiations, agreements, and the events around the process. So looking formally from the point of view of the signed document, traditionally this agreement is being extended for 120 days. Within certain period, Russian party was manipulating with terms and they were trying to play on the difference of approaches, their approach and approach by the Ukrainian party and the mediators on how this agreement should operate. Well, it provoked certain delays with the ships, vessel suspension in the basin of the Black Sea, and sometimes no single vessel was passing during the whole day due to the position of the aggressor party. But thanks to the activities of United Nations and the General Secretary specifically and our Turkish friends, we were able to continue this initiative in compliance with the agreement which was signed until the month of July, and we hope it will unblock those gems that were created in the Marble Sea due to the inspection of the vessels exiting our ports and entering the Black Sea, and it will create more conditions, as it was said in the documents, for the vessels which were staying in the ports of Mykolaiv since the beginning of the war to leave for international markets and to hand them over to their owners because they were not able to leave Ukrainian ports for a long time. There are complications in this regard, but we hope to overcome them thanks to the agreements in the quadrilateral format, which will work in benefit of Ukraine first of all. Mr. Vasyl, I cannot help but asking about any conditions that were posed by Russia to continue the grain deal. Well, what I started with, the agreement does not contemplate satisfaction of any requirements by Russia. It only contemplates export of Ukrainian grain to the international markets. What they're trying to play is they are trying to press to lift sanctions from the banks and organizations which are involved in grain trading and fertilizer trading. It is still a matter of discussion, and as it's known, United Nations was the signatory of the memorandum with Russian Federation to assist the solution of their problems. So the grain deal should work separately because the document was signed in a format that we know that is in principle operating from the summer last year. Another important question that is being discussed vividly now is the presidential elections in Turkey. We know that foreign policy of Turkey is used in the elections campaigns. So how can the elections reflect on the Ukrainian-Turkish relations? The majority of power and information campaigns within the election campaign was concentrated on internal policy. Now every party is trying to present their vision and achievements in the vision by opposition and what President Erdogan would do in case of his victory. The foreign policy factor plays its role, but it's more of an auxiliary factor rather than the main one. Obviously, the subject of Russian aggression against Ukraine is present on the agenda, and every party to the election process continues to stress the mediation services provided to Ukraine, but during presidential election campaign and parliamentary election campaign, no serious remarks were expressed towards Ukraine. There was only one marginal politician which didn't end up either in parliament or he was not nominated as a presidential candidate. Those are the marginal forces that have no significant influence there. But generally there are discussions to improve the situations in Ukraine, to improve the mechanisms of function of Turkish Republic in the process of mediation and the vision of the future, including the future of foreign policy of Turkey. So in reality we achieved a lot in our relations with Turkey during the cadence of President Erdogan, and we hope that in case the president changes, the strategic interests, which is based on the strategic interest of Turkey and Ukraine as well, will not change. I mean something related to transportation, logistics, tourism, communications. This is fundamental to our relations, and none of the parties expressed any intentions to make amendments to the process. But we have to emphasize that the theme of the West or United States or Russia sometimes surfaces and is the element of irritation, or is an element to gauge the positions of the opponent. But I would like to stress that internal factors, internal aspirations are something that is of importance in Turkish society, but there is also anti-Western sentiment which should be taken into account in bilateral relations and foreign policy in general. If we have any questions on the floor, please. Ivan Kosakin, Ukrinform. Mr. Ambassador, you just mentioned about the anti-Western sentiment, and I have to recognize I'm no expert in Turkish policy, but when I open some analytics, I see that there is a traditionalist Erdogan and pro-Western Kerish Deroglu. No, that's not true. Can you please explain it to the public? Look, the Turkish Republic 100 years ago was founded by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and he was founder of the People's Democratic Party, Turkish abbreviation CHP. They are the main opponents, the opposition party, the Turkish nationalists, who are now have, so to say, social democratic platform. This is how they represent themselves. This is the fundamental of Turkish secularism, and they are accompanied by a good party. It's one of the parts of the former parties of nationalistic movement which adheres to the right views. They were most loud in terms of critics of Russia and support of Ukraine. But again, they are the opposition party, and the rest of the smaller parties which will be included on the list of those parties, they may be left or right conservatives, and they have their approaches to foreign policy and internal policy. So they're the big conglomerate, but their fundamental is Kemalism, nationalism, and those fundamentals which were laid as a foundation of the republic. In their ruling group, there are two parties, the Party of Progress and Justice, headed by Erdogan. They have an Islamic platform with the right inclination, but the party was not changing within the last 20 years, and they've done a lot for the achievement of process, to the achievement of success in dialogue with the European Unions. There were Democrats who were making significant reforms, and now their platform changed to such a Islamic nationalism. But nationalism is a fundamental element of state building in Turkey. It's like it's not the nationalism like far right nationalism. And another party is the nationalistic movement, another party of ruling coalition. Since 2016, they're the integral part of ruling coalition with Erdogan, and they are even more further right, and they focus more on the support of traditional values in the society, the Islamic values, but they take into account the Kemalist views as well. So it's a mixed Islamist Kemalist mixture which is now on the side of power. So to say that any one of them is pro-Western or pro-Russian, it's not right. So CHP was in opposition to Erdogan for a very long time, and sometimes there was one party ruling, so they were oriented at Turkish interests. There was no influence by West or East. And if we look back in history, the push of Turkey to the West was made by the Soviet Union when they were trying to bring the Straits back under the power of Soviet Union. This is when Turkey had to switch side to the West, and before that they were quite neutral. So now it's about fighting Erdogan. Opposition has united to change the power, and conservative nationalistic forces, they focus more on preserving the existing format of ruling coalition, let's call it so, because anyway the government is being formed by the president, not the parliament, and for the time being we know, according to the results of the elections, that the parliamentary majority belongs to Erdogan and their coalition partners and a number of smaller parties that support them. So talking honestly, today now they have this advantage to add more votes to Erdogan, because in Turkey the emotions prevail and they influence significantly the results of the voting and the development of the subjects, that that party is pro-Russian or that one is pro-Western or democratic or liberal or that one is conservative. Everything is very conditional. Everything is made by the stencil of Western democracy, which does not take into account the peculiarities of the Turkey. So there should be non-linear approach to Turkish policy. Well, there is another question. I have to apologize for my ignorance. Well, it's not ignorance. When I communicate with any experts or media, I try to concentrate their attention on the experts who really understand something in this. We have a number of experts who used to work in Turkey. They speak Turkish and they comment this subject on a professional level. But some just grab a Western article and they try to take their knowledge from there, so to say. Well, this day we commemorate the date of deportation of Crimean Tatars. So how does the Tatar community in Turkey commemorate this date? Well, it's a tragedy, it's a crime. It's good that Ukraine recognized it as genocide. We are trying to push this topic in Turkey as well, so that Turkish party is more open to recognition of this crime and condemnation of Russia. The Turkey traditionally supports Crimean Tatar, and today we are raising the Tatar flag. We commemorate this day with the meeting in the evening with the Association of Crimean Tatars, with the Ukrainian community in Turkey, and in coordination with our colleagues from the Turkish party. There was a statement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey to commemorate the Crimean Tatars deportation. Today there should be 2 interviews on Ukrainian stance on commemorating the memory of deportation of the deported Crimean Tatars in historic context, and we're now fighting shoulder to shoulder with the common enemy and those Crimean Tatars who paid their lives to protect Ukraine, and those who a way to be freed. They require serious attention being paid to them, and it's good that Ukraine adopted the new law on indigenous peoples, and it's good how we work with the Crimean Tatars who are part of Ukrainian authorities now. I want to thank you for this broadcast. Thank you for the information that you provided. I'm reminding you, dear colleagues, joining us was Vasyl Bodnar, Ukraine's ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary to the Republic of Turkey. Our team is working for the schedule for tomorrow. Let's work together for our victory, and thank our armed forces for opportunity to hold events like this. And glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.